Yo, what's up? It's your favorite neighborhood historian, Dilla, on behalf of the Emancipator, here to explore the health equity solutions in the Chicago Latino community. We'll be speaking to the community to find out the what and the why on keeping them healthy, strong, and safe. Chicago is very famously known as a city of neighborhoods. I'm standing in the very beautiful neighborhood of Little Village. What was once formerly a Bohemian Czech neighborhood is now the largest Mexican populated neighborhood in the city of Chicago. So when you roll under the very historic arches of 26th Street, be sure to look up. Check out the clock given to us by the President of Mexico in 1990. Bienvenidos a Little Village. You know, as a Chicago historian, I can appreciate walking through a store and ending up in a bar. It kind of reminds me of the Prohibition days of walking through a store and ending up in a speakeasy. Hey, there's Mike. Very honored to meet you.
Pleasure's mine, hermano.
Oh.
Welcome to your house.
Thank you, and what a beautiful house this is. It's an amazing piece of not only architectural history, but Chicago history.
Absolutely.
And I would say the economics of a neighborhood are pretty important to the health of a neighborhood. I wonder if you could speak to us about the history of Little Village's community economics and how important it is here.
It's very important to us. Little Village is home to 76,000 residents. The community is very important to us because our parents that first came to Little Village, I think they foreseen more economic growth because they were opening up all these grocery stores and restaurants. My dad had 2 of them in Little Village. You kind of grow up in that atmosphere, Dilla, and as a matter of fact, I was only, 13, 14 years old. My dad told me, you need to go join the Chamber of Commerce. It's just a community that's been on the growth and transition for a long time, and it continues to be that.
Because of the segregated nature of Chicago, right, our neighborhoods can be very segregated. On the other end of that spectrum, you kind of get a pure representation of a person's homeland because of that segregation, right? And so when you come to Little Village, it feels a lot like you could be in Mexico City or Guadalajara in certain spaces. Is it important to maintain that aesthetic for the health and vitality of the community?
It is important. Not that we don't allow people to come in, but to us, it's like Little Mexico. One day I asked my dad out of the blue, I said, Dad, why don't you get out of the neighborhood and move someplace else? He said, for what? He said, everybody here speaks Spanish. And he says, I'm like in Mexico as it is. This was home to him.
I'm always talking about how you won't find very many Starbucks or McDonald's, right, in Little Village. I can only really think of one McDonald's in the entirety of a neighborhood that has 67,000 people. Is that intentional?
I don't think that was really difficult, Dilla, because I think that for some reason that I can think of, I've always heard Mexicans talk about, when I make it, I want to open up a little shop. That was always me gustaría abrir un changarrito. I always heard my parents say that, and they did. And a lot of other parents, and maybe that's why you see a lot of people with little carritos and selling churritos and all kinds of little businesses that pop up on the street. I think we do it for a purpose. We kind of like our children to stay vested in the community. It keeps the community vibrant. And it also brings tourism from the whole city, and we enjoy that.
A lot of people do. In fact, Little Village has the second highest shopping district, pretty much in the state of Illinois, year over year. Normally, I'm telling people about all the grandmas I got in Chicago. I got an Irish grandma in Bridgeport, an Asian American grandma in Chinatown, but I'm very glad now to say that I have a padrino in Little Village. It was very, very honored to meet you.
My honor is your honor. And I'm so glad to be your padrino and the padrino for all of Chicago.
We're in Little Village with the Director of Care of Esperanza, Miss Sonia Ayala. Can you tell me about some of the awesome work you guys are doing as it relates to health equity here in Little Village?
We have care management, community health workers that provide supportive care to our patients. They all speak Spanish, the majority are from the community, and they really build strong, trusting relationships with their patients. They really ask how they're feeling that day, what needs do they have that we could help with. So really just expanding the level of care that we provide and not just focusing on doctor appointments. Our patients feel comfortable talking to someone that looks like them, that speaks their same language, and so they'll definitely be able to reach out to us more when they need something if it's maybe not in the scope of what a medical home provides to the community.
Right, and speaking of home, in 1995, Chicago had this very bad heat wave, and sadly, almost 800 Chicagoans died in their homes. On average, it broke down to, 10, 12 people per neighborhood, with the exception of Little Village, because here in Little Village, the abuelas do not live by themselves.
A lot of the patients that we serve do live in multi-generational homes, and so we're not just taking care of the grandmas, we're also taking care of their sons or daughters, making sure that they don't burn out because they're their primary caregivers for all their medical needs. So we really want to provide, again, that close follow-up, wraparound service, just to make sure that they're doing okay. I actually had a patient that I worked with a few years ago, and she was a senior patient that would come into the clinic almost once a week, and she'd bring me her mail. That might seem like a very small task that like someone in the home could do, but to her that meant that there was trust in someone at the clinic. Someone would be there to do this. We'll be able to provide food, transportation, programming in-house that is really going to provide that support to our families.
Sounds like you guys are doing amazing things at Esperanza in strengthening the health equity here in Little Village, but it also sounds like you're doing things to bridge the gap that exists between communities as it relates to health equity. Ms. Sonia, I am super happy to have met you. Now I'm hoping you can take me to meet the very awesome nurse Fran.
Yes, of course. Let's go.
All right. Nurse Fran,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Dilla, very nice to meet you. We've been learning about the awesome services you guys provide here, particularly as it relates to care for expecting mothers.
I've been an OBGYN nurse for 35 years and more recently a nurse practitioner here in the clinic. But what's been new is the idea of centering. And centering is kind of a group prenatal care concept. For many of our patients, they're living in isolation here on the west side. Some of them are coming from other countries and they have no family or friends here. They're isolated. Many of them have partners that are at work all day. They might be home taking care of multiple children, and so they're lacking support. We have guest speakers. We have conversations and exchange of dialogue about ways of problem solving and issues that come up in people's lives. And we've addressed a lot of important topics, everything from domestic violence to postpartum depression, breastfeeding, what to expect with a newborn at home. I mean, we've had all kinds of guest speakers coming in. And we feel it's the kind of experience that a woman would not get if she was just seeing her provider one-on-one. So I think it's a great idea for anybody.
It reminds me of the mother circles that were formerly used in small villages. I love the concept of centering. I've also loved and enjoyed talking to you. I love the activations you guys have going on here. I'm very honored to meet you.
Thank you.
So I'm here with Ray Ragoza of Urban Warriors in the beautiful neighborhood of Little Village. And I think it's very appropriate that we're here at a park because in the history of Chicago, brown neighborhoods had a shortage of parks, a shortage of recreational spaces. How does having recreational spaces help as it relates to health solutions for a community?
It impacts the community greatly. Our youth need these spaces because it allows leaders, coaches, mentors to give access to sports, to just spend time with your family. It creates a safe space that is needed in Black and brown communities.
We know that sports teaches leadership qualities, it teaches cooperation, it teaches you to challenge yourself. Are those lessons you think better applied in parks versus classrooms?
Schools in general, public schools, they've cut down 63% of funding for athletics. That's a problem. That's why we exist.
A lot of times money is the great equalizer, right? So you may have a child that doesn't have a lot of other extracurricular opportunities, but maybe a sports team has made himself or made itself available.
Yeah.
But then there are the registration fees, the fees for the uniform.
Yeah.
How are you guys bridging that gap, and how important is it to bridge that gap?
So all of our programs are actually free of cost for our youth. The only thing I ask in return are engagement hours. I want them to engage with the community. I want them to coach the little ones coming up. I started with a group of 13 kids. Half of them are already coaching our 9-year-olds. We need to create a different cycle in our communities. And that's exactly what the Urban Warriors is doing.
When we think about change, when we think about making a difference in our community, we think it takes a big effort a lot of times. And really, we just need an individual that recognizes a problem and offers up a solution. You clearly saw a problem as it related to sports access in this neighborhood, and you're providing a solution. How can we get others to provide a solution? What advice would you give people who are hesitant to try to be a part of a solution?
To engage. I took a leap of faith and started this organization, the Urban Warriors. It's about, people engaging with our youth, with our families, with nonprofits, with other organizations to see the resources that are needed.
I try to bring a different perspective to the way that I disseminate history, and it seems like you guys are providing a different perspective in the way that you're providing access to sports. Hey, Brother Ray, it was very honored to meet you.
Pleasure. Thank you for everything, man.
So we spent some time today learning about the importance of healthcare as it relates to health solutions. We've learned about the importance of athletics and sports and how that changes the dynamics of a neighborhood. And we met with a gentleman that told us about the vitality of the economic engine that drives Little Village. My name is Shermann Dilla Thomas, here on the behalf of the Emancipator, and we'll see you next time.